In the shadowy depths of the Caribbean, where legends stir and the dead whisper, a cursed captain returns from beyond. Captain Salazar, ghostly and vengeful, escapes the Devil's Triangle with one goal: destroy every pirate, especially the elusive Jack Sparrow. As the winds of fate shift, Jack must seek the mythical trident of Poseidon, an artifact said to command the seas and break all curses. Alongside a headstrong astronomer and a young sailor with a secret legacy, he sails into a storm of vengeance, magic, and forgotten debts. In these haunted waters, the past does not rest, and the dead most certainly tell tales. Hello, and welcome to Frameshift. To all our returning students of literature and film, and to those joining us for the very first time, thank you, truly, for being here. This is more than just a YouTube channel. Frameshift is a home for curious minds. A quiet corner of the internet where stories are not just watched, but deeply felt, dissected, appreciated, and yes, sometimes even challenged. Today's voyage takes us across the wind-tossed seas of myth and meaning, through the cursed waters of legacy and redemption, and into the fading yet ever-flickering heart of a beloved cinematic universe. We're diving into the depths of Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, a film released in 2017, marking the fifth chapter of a franchise that once defined modern swashbuckling spectacle. Whether you're here with a cup of coffee after a long day of lectures, or you're nestled into your weekend escape from textbooks and theory, this video is crafted with you in mind. You, the reader of narrative, the analyzer of subtext, the lover of cinema not just as entertainment, but as a reflection of our cultural anxieties, dreams, and identities. Before we unfurl the sails of our analysis, a quick housekeeping note: if you'd like to watch the official version of Dead Men Tell No Tales, we'll guide you at the end of this video on where you can legally stream it via official OTT platforms. Support the creators, and support the art. Now, let's take a moment to outline our journey. Here's what we'll be exploring together in this comprehensive breakdown. This isn't just a review, it's a re-examination through the lens of literature, mythology, visual storytelling, character psychology, and cinematic legacy. Compass video outline: what this analysis covers. 1. Context and franchise legacy. Where are we now? We begin by anchoring ourselves in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Its origin in the early 2000s, the cultural impact of the first trilogy, and the quieter reception of the fourth film. Why did Dead Men Tell No Tales happen? What legacy did it carry on its shoulders? And what were the stakes when this film set sail in 2017? We'll talk about the evolution of the franchise's tone, its connection to theme park storytelling, and how that origin affects its narrative arc. We'll also explore the nostalgia factor, how memory and expectation shape our view of sequels and cinematic continuations. 2. Plot and structure, charting the narrative map. We'll give a brief but essential summary of the plot, highlighting key moments, character arcs, and story beats. But beyond summary, we'll examine how the structure holds, or falters. What narrative choices feel earned, and which feel rushed? Is there a traditional three-act structure? How do moments of emotional significance play out against the ticking clock of spectacle? We'll analyze flashbacks, exposition choices, and how the film balances legacy characters with the introduction of new protagonists. 3. Themes, legacy, redemption, and the ghosts we carry. This section is at the heart of our analysis. We'll explore how Dead Men Tell No Tales uses its ghostly antagonist, Captain Salazar, as a symbol. What do the undead represent in this world? Are they metaphors for guilt? For the inescapable past? For colonial hauntings? We'll also delve into the themes of broken families, inheritance, literal and emotional, and the desire to sever ties with the sins of the father. What does it mean to be a child of a cursed legacy? And can that cycle ever be broken? Jack Sparrow, too, is a vessel of fading myth. We'll talk about his transition from chaotic hero to a wandering echo of his former self. Is this a commentary on the death of legend? Or the consequences of being reduced to caricature? 4. Characters and performances, from myth to mortality. Character is story. And in this section, we'll peel back the layers of both new and returning faces. Jack Sparrow. Has he changed, or merely faded? How does Johnny Depp's performance compare to earlier entries, and what's gained or lost in that shift? Henry Turner and Karina Smith, heirs to the past. Are they compelling leads? How does the film treat its younger generation, and what do they represent? Captain Salazar. A haunting presence. We'll look into Javier Bardem's portrayal and what makes a villain memorable, or forgettable. Barbassa. Perhaps the film's most tragic and surprising arc. We'll reflect on his choices, his sacrifice, and what it says about legacy and fatherhood. 5. Visual storytelling, ghost ships, stars, and cinematic magic. Here, We'll dive into the visual language of the film. From ghostly ship battles to underwater tombs, Dead Men Tell No Tales carries moments of striking imagery. But do these visuals serve the story, or overshadow it? We'll examine the cinematography, the color palette, special effects, particularly how they handle Salazar and his crew, and the symbolic use of the stars in Karina's storyline. We'll also touch on the musical score, how it revisits iconic themes, and whether it succeeds in invoking nostalgia or forging new emotional ground. 6. The weight of myth. Can a franchise outlive its legend? A meta-reflection. Is Pirates still pirates? We'll discuss what it means when a franchise continues long after its creative spark begins to dim. Is it fair to compare later films to the originals? How does Hollywood handle aging myths and legendary characters in the age of sequels, reboots, and cinematic universes? We'll compare Dead Men Tell No Tales to other late entries in iconic franchises. Think Star Wars, The Force Awakens, or Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. What do they all have in common, and what does it tell us about the current state of storytelling in mainstream cinema? 7. Literary and mythological parallels. The sea as symbol. Let's dig deeper into literature, folklore, and the symbolism of the sea. The ocean has always stood as a symbol of the unknown, the unconscious, and the mystical. In this film, how are tides used as metaphors for time, history, and fate? We'll touch on nautical legends, Greek myth, and how the film draws from literary archetypes, from the quest narrative to the chosen one trope. We'll also explore feminist readings of Karina's storyline, especially how knowledge, science, and female intellect are portrayed in a world of superstition. 8. Audience reception and critical response. What did critics say? How did fans respond? We'll look at the Rotten Tomatoes score, audience reactions, and how the film was received both at release and in hindsight. What are the primary critiques, and are they justified? What did people love? And what do those responses tell us about our relationship with long-running film franchises? 9. Conclusion. A farewell to ghosts, or just another chapter? To wrap up, we'll ask, was Dead Men Tell No Tales a satisfying conclusion, or a bridge to something else? Can a series this vast ever truly end? We'll offer our own reflections. What moments stayed with us long after the credits rolled? And what do we, as lovers of stories, take away from a film like this, flawed, beautiful, uneven, mythic, and all? 10. How to watch the film legally. If this exploration has sparked your curiosity, or reminded you of memories worth reliving, you might want to watch, or rewatch, Dead Men Tell No Tales. You can find it streaming legally on official OTT platforms such as Disney+, available in most regions under the Pirates of the Caribbean collection. Amazon Prime Video, available for rent or purchase. Apple TV/iTunes, purchase/rent option. Google Play Movies, in select regions. Always support films through legal channels. It ensures that creators, writers, performers, and craftspeople are acknowledged and compensated for their work. Context and franchise legacy. Where are we now? To understand Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, 2017, we must sail backward before charting a course forward. This fifth installment in Disney's billion-dollar swashbuckling franchise didn't merely arrive as a new standalone adventure. It dropped anchor at a precarious moment in the saga's timeline. Laden with the weight of nostalgia, waning critical enthusiasm, and a transforming Hollywood landscape, Dead Men Tell No Tales was both a continuation and a reckoning. It was a reminder of what pirates once meant, and a question mark about what it could still be. This analysis explores the franchise's cinematic and cultural context, tracing its origins, evolution, and the complicated legacy that shaped Dead Men Tell No Tales. It invites us to think critically not only about the film itself but also about the world that created it, and the one it helped define. The genesis of a legend, from theme park to blockbuster. To appreciate the full impact of Pirates, we must first return to the surprising origins of the franchise. The first film, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, 2003, was met with considerable skepticism before its release. A film based on a theme park ride? With pirates, arguably a genre deemed commercially dead? And led by an actor, Johnny Depp, who had never headlined a family blockbuster. It was a gamble in every sense. But Curse of the Black Pearl was a revelation. Director Gore Verbinski created something magical, a high-seas fantasy adventure with gothic overtones, literary ambition, and self-aware humor. Depp's Jack Sparrow became an icon, a drunken trickster with the improvisational flair of Harlequin and the narrative impact of Odysseus. Audiences fell in love not just with the spectacle but with the spirit of the film, its layered characters, Shakespearean betrayals, eerie curses, and the tangible sense of myth. The film's massive success, over $650 million worldwide, was the spark Disney needed. Suddenly, a franchise was born, with ambitious aspirations. What followed was a trilogy, 2003 to 2007, that aimed for something rare in modern blockbusters: thematic cohesion, serialized storytelling, and mythological depth. It borrowed from Homer, Faust, Melville, and even Conrad. Dead Man's Chest and At World's End wove epic narratives of fate, betrayal, and mortality, expanding the world and raising emotional stakes. In many ways, the original trilogy stands as an underappreciated literary achievement, packaged as popcorn entertainment. The fourth film, a franchise adrift. By the end of At World's End, 2007, the trilogy felt conclusive. Storylines were wrapped, sacrifices made, debts paid. Jack Sparrow sailed off into uncertain waters, fitting for a character rooted in chaos and mystery. But Disney, seeing the franchise's profitability, wasn't ready to let go. In 2011, Pirates of the Caribbean, On Stranger Tides marked the franchise's first soft reboot. This fourth entry, directed by Rob Marshall, leaned away from the ensemble character arcs that defined the trilogy. Instead, it attempted to center the franchise solely on Jack Sparrow. With Will Turner, Orlando Bloom, and Elizabeth Swann, Keira Knightley, absent, and the narrative drawn from Tim Power's novel On Stranger Tides, the film had new characters, new lore, and a less emotionally complex tone. While commercially successful, grossing over $1 billion worldwide, it was met with critical disappointment. The storytelling felt episodic and less rooted in myth. Jack Sparrow, once a chaotic neutral trickster amid order and law, now seemed untethered, less of a character and more of a caricature. What had made Pirates great, the balance of character arcs, literary motifs, mythological weight, and emotional consequence, was largely absent. For many, it was a warning sign. The compass was spinning without a true north. 2017's Dead Men Tell No Tales, a return to familiar shores? Fast forward to 2017. Nearly 14 years had passed since The Curse of the Black Pearl, and 6 years since On Stranger Tides. In that time, Hollywood had changed. Cinematic universes now dominated the industry. Nostalgia was currency. Soft reboots had become the norm. Amid this shifting landscape, Disney released Dead Men Tell No Tales, directed by Joachim Ronning and Espen Sandberg. On the surface, this film promised a return to form. Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann would reappear. The new leads, Henry Turner and Karina Smith, would serve as legacy characters, passing the torch. A ghostly villain with a tragic past, Captain Salazar, evoked the earlier film's folkloric tone. And the plot involved a mythical object, Poseidon's trident, capable of breaking all sea curses. It was a clear attempt to rekindle the emotional and mythological fire of the original trilogy, while trying to modernize the franchise for younger audiences. But here's the central tension: while Dead Men Tell No Tales sought to honor its origins, it also struggled under the weight of them. It was caught between conclusion and continuation, nostalgia and reinvention. It knew what the fans wanted, but not how to truly earn it. Jack Sparrow, the ghost of his former self. No discussion of context would be complete without addressing the franchise's defining figure, Captain Jack Sparrow. In The Curse of the Black Pearl, Jack was a revelation. He defied every expectation of a traditional hero. He was flamboyant, unpredictable, ethically flexible, and utterly magnetic. Crucially, he was not the protagonist, but a chaotic force that pushed Will and Elizabeth's arcs forward. By Dead Men Tell No Tales, the dynamic had shifted. Jack was no longer a supporting force of entropy. He was the center of attention. And without the dramatic counterweights of Will, Elizabeth, or even Barbassa in full antagonist mode, Jack's antics began to feel hollow. In this film, Jack is portrayed as washed up, drunk, and broken. While this could have been a compelling character evolution, aging, loss, disillusionment, it was rarely explored with depth. Instead, Jack is often used for slapstick, losing the mystique and emotional ambiguity that once made him fascinating. It's a metatextual reflection. The character, and perhaps the franchise itself, is haunted by its former glory. Jack isn't just a ghost of himself, he is the ghost of the franchise. The ghosts of legacy and the weight of continuation. More than anything, Dead Men Tell No Tales is about legacy. This is literalized through Henry Turner, desperate to break his father's curse. It's echoed in Karina's pursuit of knowledge and her connection to Barbassa. And it's central to Salazar's quest for revenge against Jack's past misdeeds. But beneath the surface, legacy functions as a meta-commentary. The film itself is trying to wrestle with its inheritance. It must pay tribute to the original trilogy, while also offering something fresh. It must satisfy longtime fans, while courting new ones. And it must complete arcs, without closing the door forever. This is an increasingly common tension in long-running franchises: how to simultaneously serve closure and future potential. It's the Marvel dilemma. The Star Wars sequel trilogy faced it. So did Harry Potter with Fantastic Beasts. Dead Men Tell No Tales stands as a case study in this crisis of continuation. In trying to be both ending and beginning, it becomes neither fully. Audience fatigue and cultural shift. Another crucial piece of context is cultural fatigue. By 2017, the age of pirate blockbusters was waning. Superheroes, space operas, and grounded thrillers had taken over the cultural imagination. The romanticism of maritime myth, once so vital, felt distant. Furthermore, the public perception of Johnny Depp had shifted. Ongoing legal and personal controversies clouded his image. This wasn't just a PR issue, it affected how audiences engaged with Jack Sparrow. The charm of the character was harder to separate from the real-life figure behind it. And finally, there's the evolution of audience tastes. As Henry, Karina, and Jack eventually come together, the stage is set for a classic, unlikely fellowship adventure. Yet this unification feels somewhat mechanical. Unlike the organic camaraderie of Will, Elizabeth, and Jack in earlier films, this trio forms more out of plot necessity than shared chemistry. Act 2, The Journey Across the Sea. The second act expands the world. Here we find the characters aboard ships, exploring hidden islands, deciphering clues, and clashing with enemies both human and spectral. The narrative begins to resemble a mythological treasure hunt, a tried-and-true adventure structure. Karina's map of the stars becomes a key plot device, leading the group to the island where the trident lies. The journey includes naval pursuits, ghost battles, and a few moments of genuine character development. One of the most effective sequences in this act is the backstory of Jack Sparrow and Salazar, presented via flashback. We learn how a young Jack, clever and daring, tricked Salazar into sailing into the Devil's Triangle, trapping him and his crew in undead limbo. This moment gives Salazar's vendetta emotional heft and offers a glimpse of Jack's heroic past, something long obscured by comedic antics. However, while this flashback is narratively crucial, its placement within the film is awkward. Arriving mid-journey, it halts momentum and is framed more as exposition than revelation. That's a common structural issue in Dead Men Tell No Tales. Critical information often arrives as explanation, rather than being woven into character choices and consequences. Pacing is another challenge. The second act feels rushed. Emotional beats are often glossed over in favor of plot propulsion. For instance, Henry and Karina begin to form a romantic bond, but their connection lacks the narrative development that made Will and Elizabeth's love story resonate. Even Jack's inner conflict, his fading legend, his loss of purpose, is only hinted at. Opportunities for introspection are traded for spectacle. Act 3, Myth, Sacrifice, and Resolution. The final act is the film's most structurally coherent section. It follows the group as they arrive at the Oceanic Divide, uncover the location of the trident, and confront both human and supernatural threats. Here, the The film leans heavily into myth. The ocean parts, a striking visual metaphor, revealing an ancient seabed where the trident lies buried. It's a classic, descent into the underworld moment, echoing myths from the Odyssey to the Lord of the Rings. Salazar possesses Henry's body in a desperate attempt to reach the trident first, culminating in a final battle that is both visually rich and symbolically charged. Karina, discovering that Barbassa is her father, becomes the emotional center of this climax. Barbassa's sacrificial death, choosing to save Karina over his own life, offers one of the film's few moments of true emotional resonance. It's a callback to the franchise's best themes: identity, redemption, and the cost of legacy. The moment is powerful, but somewhat undercut by how late the reveal comes. Had the father-daughter connection been seeded earlier, the impact might have been even greater. Ultimately, the trident is destroyed, an act that releases Will Turner from his curse, reunites him with Elizabeth, and restores natural order. It's a narrative closure designed to bring the series full circle. The film ends with two romantic unions, Will and Elizabeth's reunion, and the implied romance of Henry and Karina. Jack, as always, sails off into the horizon, alone, chaotic, mythic. Thematic structure, legacy, and the weight of the past. While the plot moves briskly and sometimes haphazardly, the thematic structure of Dead Men Tell No Tales is consistent. At its core, this is a story about legacy, personal, mythic, and familial. Henry inherits his father's curse, and his sense of loyalty. Karina inherits a map and a mystery, but also the intellect to decode her own story. Jack is burdened by his past victories, now reduced to parody. Barbassa confronts the humanity he has long buried beneath ambition. The structural arcs of these characters attempt to mirror each other, each dealing with ghosts of the past, whether literal or metaphorical. The destruction of the trident becomes not just a magical act, but a symbolic gesture, breaking the chain of history, freeing the present from the curses of the past. This thematic through-line is admirable, and occasionally poignant, but it often struggles to find consistent emotional expression in the structure of the film. Set pieces and exposition compete with introspective storytelling. As a result, the characters' arcs feel rushed, their growth implied rather than earned. Narrative devices, flashbacks, MacGuffins, and coincidence. Dead Men Tell No Tales relies heavily on familiar narrative devices. 1. The MacGuffin. The Trident of Poseidon is the ultimate MacGuffin, an object of desire that drives every character's motivation. Yet, it lacks emotional texture. Unlike the Dead Man's Chest or the Heart of Davy Jones, the trident feels like a plot requirement, not a myth deeply embedded in the world. 2. Flashbacks, used to provide crucial backstory, particularly for Jack and Salazar. These moments are effective in isolation but clunky in integration. 3. Coincidence. The plot occasionally relies on convenience. Characters bump into each other through sheer narrative luck. For instance, Jack's drunken stumble into a guillotine escape is played for laughs, but it reflects a broader reliance on chance rather than cause-and-effect logic. These devices are not inherently problematic, but when overused, they strain believability and reduce the agency of the characters. Structural echoes, parallels to the original trilogy. The structure of Dead Men Tell No Tales intentionally mirrors beats from The Curse of the Black Pearl. A cursed antagonist seeks vengeance. A trio of heroes with interwoven destinies embarks on a mythic quest. A climactic confrontation at sea leads to resolution through sacrifice. The central female character challenges expectations and represents both knowledge and autonomy. This mirroring is nostalgic, even comforting, but it also highlights the disparity in narrative execution. What once felt organic now feels reconstructed. The echoes are there, but slightly out of tune. Final thoughts: coherence versus clutter. In assessing the plot and structure of Dead Men Tell No Tales, we find a film that knows what story it wants to tell, but struggles with how to tell it. The narrative is ambitious, juggling multiple threads with mythic scope and emotional potential. Its structure, however, often prioritizes momentum over development. Scenes move quickly, but arcs feel truncated. Emotional payoffs exist, but are not always earned. And while the story as a whole follows the bones of classical adventure, it's often burdened by exposition, repetition, and tonal imbalance. Yet for all its flaws, there's something undeniably heartfelt about this chapter. It seeks to restore a sense of wonder, to reconnect with the emotional DNA of the franchise. And in moments, brief but memorable, it succeeds. And finally, there's the evolution of audience tastes. What worked in 2003 didn't automatically work in 2017. Viewers craved complexity, subversion, representation, and innovation. While Dead Men Tell No Tales made attempts, Karina as a feminist scholar, a more tragic villain, it often fell back on familiar tropes. The world had changed, but pirates hadn't entirely caught up. The mythological decay, a fractured world of rules. In the original trilogy, the world of pirates felt lived in. It had rules, lore, myths that felt ancient and mysterious. The supernatural elements were scary, earned, and woven into the fabric of the universe. By the fifth film, much of that world-building felt diluted. The Trident of Poseidon, introduced as a mythical artifact capable of undoing all curses, was resolved quickly and without much gravitas. Salazar's ghost crew, while visually arresting, lacked the existential dread of Davy Jones or the Black Pearl's undead pirates. This is the problem with diminishing returns. When every sequel must escalate the stakes or power levels, the mystique disappears. Myth becomes mechanics. Comparative legacy, how does it stack up? Let's place Dead Men Tell No Tales within the full arc of the franchise. 1. The Curse of the Black Pearl, 2003. A near-perfect blend of character, theme, and myth. 2. Dead Man's Chest, 2006. Darker, more ambitious, narratively riskier. 3. At World's End, 2007. A Shakespearean epic, overloaded but emotionally potent. 4. On Stranger Tides, 2011. A sidestep. Commercially successful, but emotionally thin. 5. Dead Men Tell No Tales, 2017. A reflective, uneven attempt at redemption. The fifth film tries to return to the soul of the first three but lands somewhere in between. It is better than On Stranger Tides in its emotional ambition, but falls short of the mythic resonance that made the original trilogy so compelling. Legacy defined. What does the franchise leave behind? Ultimately, what is the legacy of Pirates of the Caribbean? It redefined how Hollywood approached genre films. It revived the pirate mythos for a new generation. It gave us characters that became cultural icons. And in its best moments, it offered us myth, morality, humor, heartbreak, and humanity. Dead Men Tell No Tales stands not as a failure, but as a reflection. A mirror held up to a franchise trying to remember who it was. It is both a farewell and a question. Can myth survive commodification? Can a legend endure beyond its own time? It leaves us with a choice. We can see it as a closing chapter, a flawed but heartfelt coda, or as a lighthouse, flickering still, guiding future storytellers who dare to brave these waters again. Final reflection. For students of film and literature, Dead Men Tell No Tales is a fascinating case study. It reveals how franchises evolve and erode, how legacy can inspire or overwhelm, and how even the grandest myths must eventually reckon with their own mortality. So, where are we now? We're at the edge of the map, as Jack once said. And beyond that, well, perhaps stories still worth telling. 2. Plot and structure, charting the narrative map. In any cinematic journey, the plot is our compass, and structure is the map we follow through the narrative terrain. Together, they define not only what happens but how we experience it. In Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, 2017, the fifth installment of the long-standing Disney franchise, both plot and structure attempt to do something ambitious, honor the past, propel new characters forward, and deliver a coherent tale within a world already overflowing with curses, artifacts, and unresolved destinies. But how successfully does the film chart its narrative course? Does it follow the traditions of the epic adventure, or does it lose itself in the fog of its own convolutions? In this segment, we'll delve into the film's plot mechanics and structural design, from the opening sequence to the final emotional beats, exploring both its ambitions and its shortcomings. We will break down the major story arcs, examine pacing and thematic layering, and reflect on how structure serves character, myth, and audience engagement. Along the way, we'll also evaluate how Dead Men Tell No Tales functions as part of a larger narrative legacy, asking the fundamental question: does the story find its sea legs, or does it drift? Opening anchors, a return to familiar shores. The film opens with a symbolic gesture of legacy. A young boy, soon revealed to be Henry Turner, son of Will Turner and Elizabeth Swan, descends into the ocean, determined to reach the Flying Dutchman and break his father's eternal curse. It's a bold, mythic start, echoing the classical call to adventure in heroic storytelling. In many ways, this opening scene serves as a narrative tether, anchoring Dead Men Tell No Tales to the emotional core of the original trilogy. It re-establishes one of the franchise's most powerful unresolved arcs, Will Turner's imprisonment beneath the waves. For longtime fans, this moment offers a pulse of continuity, a passing of the torch, and sets the emotional stakes. The narrative then jumps forward several years, as Henry, now a young naval sailor, warns his superiors of the impending danger posed by the cursed ship of Captain Salazar. Predictably, he's ignored. Chaos ensues. Salazar and his undead crew annihilate their vessel in a ghostly, visually spectacular attack. From the outset, then, the film promises a classical swashbuckling tale rooted in bloodlines, revenge, and myth. But as we proceed deeper into the narrative, that promise begins to strain under the film's crowded structure. The core narrative threads, multiple journeys, intertwined paths. Dead Men Tell No Tales weaves together several concurrent storylines. 1. Henry Turner's quest. Motivated by love for his father and a desire to break the curse of the Flying Dutchman, Henry sets out in search of the mythical trident of Poseidon, a device said to nullify all curses of the sea. 2. Karina Smith's journey. A brilliant young astronomer, Karina is falsely accused of witchcraft and sentenced to death. She carries with her a mysterious diary passed down by her long-lost father, its celestial maps pointing toward the trident's location. 3. Jack Sparrow's fall and redemption. The once legendary pirate is introduced in a state of comedic decline. He's lost his crew, his ship, and seemingly his sense of purpose. He becomes reluctantly entangled in the quest when his old nemesis, Captain Salazar, returns from the grave to exact vengeance. 4. Salazar's revenge. A ghost from Jack's past, Salazar seeks the trident to annihilate all pirates, particularly Jack, who doomed him decades ago by outwitting him with trickery and courage. 5. Barbassa's bargain. The ever-ambitious Captain Barbassa aligns himself with Salazar, at first for survival, but later for reasons tied to his secret connection to Karina. Each thread carries the potential for rich character arcs and compelling drama. But when woven together, the story sometimes strains under the weight of its own complexity. The film must constantly shift gears between action, exposition, and emotional development, occasionally sacrificing depth for speed. Act 1, Exposition, Escapes, and Reunions. The first act is largely concerned with reintroducing characters and establishing stakes. It moves at a brisk pace, sometimes too brisk. We see Henry arrested and imprisoned for mutiny. We meet Karina as she escapes a death sentence with ease and cleverness. We are reintroduced to Jack Sparrow during an over-the-top bank heist scene, filled with visual humor but narratively disconnected from the film's emotional core. This early section juggles tone inconsistently. While Henry and Karina are framed with sincerity, Jack's scenes veer toward slapstick. For some viewers, this dissonance can be jarring, creating a fractured emotional engagement. 3. Themes, legacy, redemption, and the ghosts we carry. A critical analysis of Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, 2017, word count, 3,000. In stories that endure, those we carry in our hearts long after the final scene, there are often quiet echoes beneath the surface. The whisper of a haunted past, the hunger to be remembered rightly, the ache of trying to make amends. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, 2017, though filled with action, comedy, and spectacle, is ultimately a story about what we leave behind, whom we owe, and whether we can ever outrun our ghosts. While the film functions as an epic seafaring adventure, its emotional anchor lies in three powerful themes: legacy, redemption, and the ghosts we carry, both literal and metaphorical. Each character, major or minor, is haunted by history, whether it's family, betrayal, past mistakes, or lost identity. This is a world where debts must be paid, curses broken, and names reclaimed. Beneath the golden cannon smoke lies a story of inherited pain, quiet hope, and mythic closure. In this chapter, we will chart the thematic currents that steer Dead Men Tell No Tales, breaking down how each thread functions across characters and narrative arcs, and how these timeless human struggles elevate the film's fantastical premise into something far more relatable and resonant. Legacy, the burden of inheritance. At its core, Dead Men Tell No Tales is a story about inheritance, not just of objects or power, but of wounds, debts, and expectations. Every major character is defined by what they carry from the past, and what they hope to do with it. Henry Turner, the Son of the Sea. Henry Turner is the most literal embodiment of legacy. Born of Will Turner and Elizabeth Swan, he inherits not only their love story but the curse that tore them apart. From childhood, Henry grows up with the knowledge that his father is doomed to an undead fate aboard the Flying Dutchman, a myth that to him is heartbreakingly real. His journey is one of filial devotion. While many fantasy protagonists seek glory or freedom, Henry wants something humbler, purer, to save his father. He is driven not by ambition, but by obligation, to his family, to memory, to the injustice of a curse that punished noble sacrifice. His pursuit of the trident is thus an attempt to rewrite the ending of a story begun in a previous trilogy. Henry's arc asks the question, can a son undo the pain inherited from his father? And more broadly, can the next generation fix the world the previous one broke? Karina Smith, Legacy of the Mind and the Heart. Karina's story is also rooted in legacy, but of a different kind. She carries the diary of her long-lost father, a celestial map, an enigma, a final clue to her identity. Raised in an orphanage, Karina grows up with no name, no family, and no answers. Her inheritance is intellectual, knowledge, science, astronomy, reason. Unlike Henry, Karina's legacy is hidden from her, shrouded in mystery. Her arc is about reclamation, piecing together fragments of the past to understand herself. Her eventual discovery that Barbassa is her father is a powerful moment not because of its shock value, but because of what it represents thematically, the intersection of logic and myth, of mind and heart. Barbassa's secret, that he abandoned his daughter to protect her future, is another example of the paradox of legacy. He gave her nothing but a diary, and yet, that diary gave her everything. Karina's struggle, who am I? Where do I come from? Is a universal one. And the moment she claims her surname Barbassa near the film's end is more than emotional catharsis. It is the act of choosing to own her story, in all its pain and mystery. Jack Sparrow, a legacy in decline. Perhaps the most melancholic portrayal of legacy is Jack Sparrow himself. Once a name that inspired fear, chaos, and admiration, Jack in this film is a faded echo of his former self. He is introduced drunk, disheveled, and abandoned. His compass, the magical item that once symbolized his instincts and mythic pull, no longer even functions properly in his hands. Jack's arc is not one of ambition or heroism, it is one of survival in the face of irrelevance. He is haunted by the weight of his own legend. The irony, of course, is that Jack built his legacy on lies, wit, and luck. Now, that same legacy has become a prison. He's not just trying to escape Salazar, he's trying to escape his own diminishing myth. This touches on a poignant cultural idea: what happens when a person outlives their legend? What becomes of icons when memory fades and new stories arise? Jack's drunken antics and fading charm are not just comic relief, they're a reflection of the melancholy of fading fame. Redemption, the currency of sacrifice. If legacy is what we inherit, redemption is how we attempt to pay our debts. In Dead Men Tell No Tales, redemption takes many forms: sacrifice, forgiveness, and reclamation. Each character, in their own way, is seeking to atone for past sins or failures. Barbassa, the pirate's final gift. The most compelling redemptive arc in the film belongs to Hector Barbassa. From villain to antihero to tragic father, Barbassa's character evolution across the franchise is one of the most complex and satisfying. In Dead Men Tell No Tales, he is introduced at the height of his power, commanding a fleet, surrounded by wealth. But when faced with Salazar's threat, and then confronted with Karina's identity as his daughter, Barbassa undergoes a transformation. He begins the film as a pragmatist, willing to serve Salazar for survival. But by the end, he is a father again, making the ultimate sacrifice to protect the daughter he never claimed. His death is one of the franchise's most emotional moments, and a true act of redemption. Barbassa's final words to Karina, "my treasure," reframe his entire life. A man who once sought gold, power, and immortality finally discovers what truly matters. His arc reflects the classical redemption trope, the villain who dies doing good. But in Barbassa's case, it doesn't feel like a trope. It feels earned. Salazar, vengeance without peace. Captain Salazar is a ghost in every sense, undeath personified, driven by revenge. His hatred for pirates is rooted in trauma. He was once a celebrated Spanish naval officer, hunting pirates in the name of justice. His encounter with a young Jack Sparrow led to his death and transformation into something monstrous. Salazar's quest for the trident is not to undo his own suffering, but to make others suffer more. He wants annihilation, not healing. His inability to seek redemption makes him a tragic figure, a man so consumed by rage that he becomes its vessel. Salazar's undeath is symbolic. He is unable to move on because he cannot forgive, cannot evolve, cannot let go. In contrast to Barbassa, who redeems himself through sacrifice, Salazar is undone by obsession. He represents the thematic warning: those who cannot forgive are doomed to haunt the world they refuse to leave. Jack Sparrow, a redemption deferred. Jack's arc in this film lacks a conventional redemptive climax, but perhaps that's the point. He doesn't save the world. He doesn't dramatically change. He remains the unpredictable trickster, always one step from danger, one sip from madness. And yet, he does something important. He lets go. When Jack willingly surrenders his compass and allows others, Karina, Henry, even Barbassa, to steer the quest, he takes a step away from ego. He stops being the center. That, in a subtle way, is Jack's redemption. He lets the world change, even if he doesn't. In myth, the trickster often survives not by learning but by enduring. Jack's small redemption is in choosing not to interfere, trusting that others can carry the future better than he ever could. The Ghosts We Carry, Hauntings of the Past. The title of the film, Dead Men Tell No Tales, is a phrase steeped in ominous legend. But in this story, it feels ironic, almost false. Because in this film, the dead won't stop talking. In fact, they are the tale. Ghosts, both literal and figurative, are everywhere. They haunt ships, minds, oceans, and memories. They are metaphors for unresolved guilt, for history's violence, for grief we haven't yet named. Salazar's crew, the curse of revenge. The most obvious ghosts are Salazar's crew, undead men trapped between life and death. Their appearance is ghastly, suspended in motion, rotted, floating, but their pain is more than visual. They are bound to vengeance. They are trapped in a moment of rage that never ends. They represent what happens when trauma is not healed. These ghosts are not evil in the traditional sense, they are unhealed. Their curse is a refusal to accept death, to make peace with the past. Their release at the film's end, when the trident is shattered, symbolizes not just magical freedom, but spiritual closure. Jack's past, memory as a burden. Jack Sparrow is not haunted by phantoms, he is haunted by himself. The flashback to young Jack defeating Salazar is not a triumphant memory, it is a wound. Jack's entire present is shaped by that moment of victory. He's been running ever since. Jack's ghosts are his choices, his luck, his legend. He is burdened not by what he's done wrong, but by what he's done too well. Fame has made him lonely. His myth has made him obsolete. He cannot be the pirate he was, but he cannot become anything else. That existential paralysis is its own kind of haunting. The ocean itself, a graveyard of stories. The sea, in this film and throughout the franchise, is more than a setting, it is a character. It is vast, merciless, mythic. It holds ghosts, curses, sunken ships, and forgotten names. In literary terms, the ocean often symbolizes the unconscious, the realm of memory and mystery. In Dead Men Tell No Tales, it serves this symbolic role beautifully. It is where fathers disappear, where legends are forged, where the past is buried. When the sea parts at the film's climax, revealing the ocean floor where the trident lies, it is more than spectacle. It is a descent into the mythic underworld. A final confrontation with everything buried. A reckoning. Thematic intersections. When legacy becomes redemption. What makes Dead Men Tell No Tales rich in theme, despite its narrative flaws, is how seamlessly its central motifs intersect. Henry's quest to break his father's curse is a legacy story, but also a journey of redemption. He wants to fix what was broken, even if he didn't break it. Karina's scientific pursuit of the trident is an act of reclaiming her legacy, but when she learns the truth of her parentage, she seeks emotional redemption as well. Barbassa's sacrifice is a moment of redemption, but it also passes down a new legacy, giving his daughter her name and future. Jack, while resisting all change, still finds himself swept along by the tide of those trying to right the past. He is both ghost and survivor. These thematic threads weave a tapestry of longing, grief, courage, and closure. The film may stumble in execution, but its heart beats in time with something real. Final reflection: why these themes still matter. In the end, Dead Men Tell No Tales is a film about stories, and the parts of them we cannot forget. It reminds us that legacy is not about what we leave behind, it's about what others carry forward. Redemption is not always dramatic. It can be quiet, final, and personal. Ghosts don't always rattle chains. They whisper regrets. They live in names. They sail with us every time we look back. For students of literature and film, the thematic depth here offers much to explore. Behind the spectacle lies a meditation on identity, on memory, and on what we owe to each other. It's a film that, for all its flaws, dares to ask, can we ever be free of the past? Or must we make peace with it and sail on? 4 characters and performances, from myth to mortality. In cinema, character is the beating heart of story. Even the grandest spectacles can falter without compelling characters to anchor their waves. From silent glances to sweeping monologues, it is through performance that stories take breath, flesh and blood stitched into myth. In Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, 2017, character is where the film both reaches back to its golden age and struggles to navigate forward. As the 5th entry in a sprawling franchise that once redefined the swashbuckling genre, Dead Men Tell No Tales inherits a cast of legendary figures: Captain Jack Sparrow, Hector Barbassa, Will Turner, and introduces new blood in Henry Turner and Karina Smith. It seeks to balance nostalgia with novelty, comedy with gravitas, myth with humanity. But as time passes, myth can fade. Legends can crack. In this analysis, we will chart the arc of the film's major characters and examine how performances elevate, or falter, within a franchise grappling with its own identity. We will explore how characters once larger than life are brought closer to earth, how new protagonists step into old shoes, and how actors both embrace and resist the weight of cinematic legacy. Captain Jack Sparrow, the trickster in decline. No character better embodies the spirit of Pirates of the Caribbean than Captain Jack Sparrow, brought to life by Johnny Depp in one of the most iconic performances of the 21st century. First introduced in The Curse of the Black Pearl, 2003, Jack was a revelation, an anti-hero pirate whose slurred charm, chaotic logic, and almost Shakespearean self-mythologizing captured the world's imagination. By the time we reach Dead Men Tell No Tales, however, Jack has changed, and not entirely for the better. The myth diminished. Jack in this film is not the confident, improvisational rogue of earlier years. He is introduced not as a grand adventurer, but as a washed-up relic, passed out in a bank vault, abandoned by his crew, and regarded with more ridicule than fear. His ship, the Black Pearl, remains miniaturized and useless. His compass, once a symbol of destiny, is cast aside without thought. He is a ghost of his former self. This is deliberate. The filmmakers seem to recognize that Jack, like the franchise, has grown tired. He is a once-feared myth who has lived past his prime, and the narrative positions him accordingly, as a fading icon in a world moving on. Depp's performance, repetition or reflection. Johnny Depp's performance here is, in many ways, a continuation of his prior portrayals. The swaying gait, slurred speech, and spontaneous wit are all present. But something feels off. There is less precision in the physical comedy, less nuance in the delivery. What was once unexpected now feels rehearsed. To his credit, Depp attempts to lean into Jack's decline. There's a subtle pathos beneath the antics, a sense of loss, disillusionment, and resignation. But the script offers little space for introspection. Jack is used more for comic relief than character development. As a result, while Depp remains charismatic, Jack's arc feels stunted. He is no longer a catalyst for change, but a side note to other stories. The myth has become mortal, and perhaps that's the point. Hector Barbossa, the pirate and the father. If Jack Sparrow is the trickster of the pirate's mythos, Hector Barbossa, Geoffrey Rush, is its chameleon, shifting roles from villain to hero to something more complex. In Dead Men Tell No Tales, Barbossa undergoes his most profound transformation yet, from ruthless pirate lord to self-sacrificing father. Performance is transformation. Geoffrey Rush delivers what may be the film's most emotionally resonant performance. From his first appearance, regal, adorned, commanding a fleet, Barbossa radiates confidence and control. He is a man who has risen from mutiny, death, and servitude to carve a legacy of his own. But Rush never lets us forget the cracks beneath the gold. When Barbossa discovers that Karina Smith is his daughter, his entire character shifts. The man who once mocked sentimentality becomes quietly reverent. Rush plays this transformation with grace, never overplaying the moment. A single glance, a hesitant word, a silent gaze across the ship. These small gestures convey oceans of emotion. Death and redemption. Barbossa's death is the emotional climax of the film. When he sacrifices himself to save Karina, we see not just a narrative beat, but the fulfillment of a character arc 2 decades in the making. The man who once chased gold above all else now sees his daughter as his only treasure. In that final act, gripping his daughter's hand, whispering "my treasure," Barbossa sheds every ounce of villainy. He is humanized, redeemed, elevated. Karina Smith, knowledge against superstition. In a franchise historically dominated by men, Dead Men Tell No Tales introduces a rare female lead with depth and agency, Karina Smith, played by Kaya Scodelario. A brilliant astronomer, Karina challenges the patriarchal world around her, not through combat, but through intellect. Character as reclamation. Karina's character is layered with symbolism. She represents science in a world of magic, logic in a sea of superstition. She is accused of witchcraft not for casting spells, but for reading stars. Her very presence is a critique of a world that fears knowledge. Yet, Karina is not just a narrative symbol. She is a young woman seeking identity. Her quest for the trident parallels her search for her father. Her mind is her weapon, her map, her inheritance. Kaya Scodelario plays Karina with strength and sensitivity. She avoids the strong female character cliché by grounding her intelligence in vulnerability. Her scenes of defiance are as powerful as her moments of confusion. When she finally learns of her parentage, Scodelario allows the weight of the revelation to land without melodrama. Strength without stereotype. Karina's arc reclaims the space for women in a genre that too often marginalizes them. She is not a love interest first. She is not rescued. She is central to the plot, to the mythos, and to the emotional core of the film. And yet, the film occasionally falls short in giving her the narrative space she deserves. Her romantic connection with Henry, while sweet, is underdeveloped. More screen time is given to Jack's jokes than to her evolution. Still, Karina remains one of the franchise's most refreshing characters. Henry Turner, heir to the past. As the son of Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann, Henry Turner, Brenton Thwaites, enters the story already carrying emotional weight. He is, quite literally, the embodiment of the original trilogy's legacy. But does he live up to it? A familiar archetype. Henry fits a well-worn narrative mold, the idealistic young hero seeking to save a loved one. He is noble, determined, and pure of heart. In many ways, he mirrors his father from The Curse of the Black Pearl. Brenton Thwaites brings sincerity to the role, portraying Henry with earnestness and restrained emotion. His scenes with Orlando Bloom, brief though they are, capture a genuine sense of longing. But the character struggles to stand out. His arc is overshadowed by the more dynamic figures around him. He rarely drives the plot, instead reacting to events. And while his motivation, to free his father, is powerful, it doesn't evolve much over the course of the film. Henry is, in essence, a bridge character, linking the old world to the new. His presence is important, but his personality is less distinctive. Captain Salazar, the tragic phantom. Every myth needs a villain, and in Dead Men Tell No Tales, that role is filled by Captain Armando Salazar, portrayed by Javier Bardem. A ghostly, rage-consumed figure, Salazar is driven by vengeance, specifically, against Jack Sparrow. Visual horror, emotional core. Salazar is visually stunning, black hair floating in waterless currents, fragmented skin, bleeding lips. He and his crew are undead, suspended between moments of their deaths. It's a haunting